Hey guys, I know that I've been on about a month and a half unannounced hiatus. That was almost entirely due to the fact that I was really busy towards the end of the semester, but I do remember, I didn't forget that I do owe you guys a Burning Abyss deck profile still, all these weeks later. I think this one is going to be a lot more interesting than the one I would have done a month and a half ago. So I'm just going to get right into it. Maybe I'll talk about other stuff in the description or in the comments or something, but let's just get into this deck profile here. So first of all, we're going for a slightly higher Burning Abyss count than I have played in quite a long time. This was partially in an effort to raise the main deck size a little bit. The 3 Farfa, I think Farfa is really good this format, and he's just one of the best Burning Abyss monsters that isn't limited. 2 Skarm, 1 Graph, 1 Seer, 1 Barbar, 1 Calcab, 1 Libic, and 1 Alec. Going into the honorary Burning Abyss monsters, 1 Tour Guide, of course, it's your best search target with Skarm and a solid normal summon. And the triple Fiendish Rhino Warrior, essentially more copies of Graph in your deck. Next, the Orcust cards, obviously very, very powerful this format. There are entire decks dedicated to just using the generic Orcust combo. I think Burning Abyss is one of the better decks at doing this, and it has some upsides that other variants don't, which I might discuss in a little bit. But this is pretty standard. 2 Orcust Nightmare, 1 Orcust Harp Horror, and 2 Symbol Skeleton. The Phantom Knights, we're just playing 1 Cloak and 1 Silent Boots. I don't think you really want to play more than this because in some ways they're sort of bricks. Yes, potentially you could open Boots and one of the other ones, and that is your 2 level 3s. But I just think there's other better, more reliable ways of getting out Cherubini. So these are pretty much just the targets for Rusty Bardiche and nothing else. Getting into the dangers, we're just running 2 Nessie for now. I didn't want to run too many dangers. I think they're just other good extenders. Nessie's not level 3, which is the main detractor here. Cherubini is the primary goal of this deck, at least to start. So just 2 Nessie for now. 3 Tsuchinoko and 3 Jackalope. Of course, these are the best dangers for us, as they're level 3. They can draw us card and cycle through our deck, etc. Also playing triple Defrag Dragon. So yeah, I've been playing around with this card for several months, and I've decided to go back to it again in an effort to raise the deck size a little bit. I played 3 instead of 2 or 1. In general, I think it's a great card. It's just a really reliable level 3 extender that is dark. A really good opening play going second is to just discard Farf off of Defrag Dragon. Or in general, if there's any dead cards in your hand like dead Orcusts, Defrag Dragon is one way for you to get them out of your hand. Secondary effect does come up every once in a while. We are playing 3 Farfa, 3 Fiendish Rhino Warrior, 3 Tsuchinoko, and 3 Jackalope, and 3 Ash, I suppose. So we have a bunch of 3-Evs in this deck, unlike most versions of Burning Abyss that we've been playing the last. So, and the aforementioned 3 Ash, I think it's just obviously the best hand trap in the format right now. Overall anyways, and you really can't get away without playing it. Maybe you could, like, if you really wanted to try to squeeze in more extenders, this would be probably the first card to cut, but I just don't feel like any extenders are really worth playing over Ash Blossom at this current deck size. And Dispels, 1 Foolish. Of course, this is just sort of a generic extender card. There's a few different things you can do with it. Orchestrated Babel allows you to use Orcust effects during your opponent's turn, and triple, Called by the Grave. This deck, unlike other versions of Burning Abyss, lose a little bit harder to hand traps. I wouldn't say hand traps are the end of the world for this deck, but they're a lot more difficult to deal with than it was for the older Sekka's Light version that was playing, you know, Snow and Orbital Hydralander. Hand traps just didn't really matter back then. If they ashed the Graph, it was kind of no big deal. But we're a bit more of a linear combo deck. I don't want to say this deck is linear, but it's more linear than it was in some ways. And so there is a more clear way for your opponent to stop your optimal plays. For trap cards, 2 Fogblade and 1 Shade Brigandine for search targets. for Rusty Bardiche and Orcust, excuse me, Crescendo. Really strong counter trap that you can set off of Galatea, so of course we're going to play it. Going into the extra deck, we have one Beatrice and the one Dante. You don't really miss the second Dante too often. You're not really playing grind games with this deck too much. Generally, you want your really good first turn board where you completely stop them and then you kill them the next turn, or if you're going second, you just want to break their board and try to kill them with Boral Sword. So the second Dante very rarely comes up, if ever. One Dingirsu, some more pure danger Orcust decks play multiples. You don't really ever need it in this deck, to be honest. The first Dingirsu is usually the only one you're making, and so that's fine. It can be revived also with your other Orcust cards, so we're solid there. For Link 4s, I'm playing Boral Sword and Avermax. Boral Sword, of course, for the damage OTKs. I think Avermax is insane this format, especially against Sky Striker, considering that it cannot be targeted by card effects. Means that their only out to it is jamming waves. So if you can somehow get Avermax with a Crescendo and Galatea accompanying it, that is just straight up game against Sky Strikers. There's nothing they can do to you at that point. And even Avermax just by itself is a pretty strong card that demands a very specific answer immediately. The only downside of the card compared to Borload or Topologic Bomber is that it is light attribute instead of dark attribute, so you have to summon it before you use your Orcust monster effects. But I personally feel right now that it is tested so well against Sky Striker that I really want to run it. One Rusty Bardiche, of course, for the standard opening combo, allows you to set Double Fog, Blade, or grab Shade Brigadine for further extension. One Topologic Trisbana, if there's one card in the extra deck that's flexible, I'd say this is it. This could be your second Dante, this could be your Borload, this could be your Topologic Bomber Dragon, this could be Triple Burst Dragon, this could be a whole bunch of things. This could be Phantom Knights of Break Sword, for example. That's another rank 3 you could play. I'm sticking with this card because it's been, you know, so reliable for me. It's done so much to win so many games against powerful decks. The one downside of it is that sometimes Rusty Bardiche is using up the space that you would ideally summon this with. It does not have side arrows, so you cannot have Rusty Bardiche on your field when you summon this. But when I am summoning it, it's generally into trap boards before I've even made Rusty Bardiche, and it allows me to get back into the game against those decks. And quite frankly, if you resolve this card against trap decks, more often than not, you're probably winning the game. One of Cherubini, early combo extender. You only really need one if you're going into a second one. That means in pretty much all likelihood you're losing, so they're just other better cards that take precedence over the second one. Double Galatea in the standard combo, or even in some of the non-standard combos. Occasionally you get hand trapped or whatever and you have to do some weird crap, but generally speaking you are making 2 Galatea. For Nightmares, 1 Unicorn, 1 Phoenix, 1 Cerberus, and double Mermaid in case the first one gets negated. Gives you a chance to make another one later in the match, like the next turn, whatever. Some other cards and engines I'd like to shout out at the end of this video, as I said I would, just quickly discussing them. First of all, the Psychic cards, Wheelater and Tracker. Great level 3 extenders. They do, however, have some synergy issues. They're a little less versatile, as they do require another level 3 on the field for them to be summoned, and they are also Earth attribute as opposed to Dark attribute, which makes them worse than cards like Defrag Dragon and Dangers in many situations. Then again, you know, Defrag Dragon can sometimes be a -1 in Dangers, and sometimes discard things you'd like to keep, so there's a pretty strong argument for running those cards as well. You can also run Emergency Teleport alongside them. I'd also really like to talk about an engine that I'm probably going to start testing over the next week, the Salamangrate engine. Yeah, Salamangrate's in Burning Abyss. Pretty crazy. but a lot of people have been trying it because Gazelle, if you normal summon the Gazelle, it can dump Spinny, which would then be able to special summon itself to your field. That is 2 level 3s in a normal summon. You can also run the spell card Salamangrate Circle to search the Gazelle. So you have a searchable normal summon that gets you 2 level 3s without really having to run anything else too crazy or weird. So really solid engine, I think. Haven't really tested it, but it looks really amazing. I think you're going to want to play 50 or more cards possibly to accommodate that engine, because it would really suck to open both you know, Gazelle and Circle. There's just too many multiples of the Salamangrate cards, so probably a higher deck size for that, but a lot of potential there for sure. I think those were the main things. Also, I talked about some of the other extra deck options. Another one I didn't mention when I talked about Trisbana and what can be flexed into its spot. Orcust Longirsu is another extra deck card that can be used in many of the Orcust combos. You could run that in the extra deck instead of the second Galatea, or instead of the Trisbana. So that's another option there for you. And yeah, I think that's pretty much all I had. You could also try more Phantom Knights and Allures and whatever. There's a deck that top 8'd in, I think, Utah that did that. But this is the deck that I've been playing, and I think it's fairly solid. It's not too non-standard. I think a lot of people have something that looks kind of like this. I do like the increased deck size. Minimizes drawing into your Phantom Knights, minimizes drawing into multiple Orcust pieces. You know, drawing into one isn't the end of the world, but when you start getting 2 or 3, that can become a problem. So I like playing more than 40. I know not everyone agrees with playing more than 40 cards, but I do think as you gain more experience with deck building, I think you gain the ability to, you know, be able to identify the situations in which more than 40 cards may be preferable, and that is becoming more and more frequent as searching in this deck, or excuse me, in this game, becomes a lot more prolific. So, liking the 45 cards, and I hope that you guys like this deck. I'd be really curious to hear what you have to say. If you have any anecdotes about the Salamangrate engine in this deck, I'd love to hear them. It's like I said, really interested in trying it out and changing around this deck to accommodate it better and see where that lands me. I'll be making another video later this week or early next week, depending on the order in videos I do next. I'll do a video on different variants of Burning Abyss, whether it's this one, the Phantom Knight one, World Chalice. I think there's a lot of different ways to play this deck right now. Even though this is probably the most competitive, there's just so many things you can do with it. So I'll make a video regarding that, and I will see you guys later. Bye.